and Apple devices. Yeah, I think so. I haven't done that recently myself, but like if you're Bluetooth, you're fine. But if you are thinking of more of like cloud stuff, then
no, the use case that's in my mind right now, two things. I can on my PC, if I get a text message on my phone, it'll just come up on my PC using the Windows phone link or phone app or whatever that thing is called. I really like that. I also am able to copy and paste between my PC and my phone seamlessly using that app. So if I were to get a Mac, is there some application that will allow me to do those two things where I can actually copy and paste between my, whatever that new Mac would be and my Android device? Because I definitely am not leaving Android for iOS. But I can see adding a Mac Mini into my
I feel like the
ecosystem.
The easiest option would be like, what do you got? Dropbox, something like that, where it's like both of those, all things can be copied over.
So let me give you an example. I have a lot of times where I will get like a code that I'll get on my phone and I need to paste it into an app on the PC. As long as I copy it on my phone, I can go right to my PC, right click, on my mouse, click paste, and it just does it. I don't have to send it. I don't have to do anything. It's just whatever is on my clipboard on my phone is also on my clipboard on my PC and vice versa.
Sure.
That is ridiculously useful. So I'm just wondering, is there a way to do that between an Android device and a Mac?
Yeah, you're sort of talking about like the beauty of iCloud, but with an Android device. Like, does that work? I don't really know.
Yeah.
I don't know boots on the ground. If anybody does, and I'm sure many of you do, let us know.
Yeah, please do, because as I said, I every year when new Mac stuff comes out, I'm thinking about getting a Mac. I'm really not thinking about it, but now I haven't said that, and I am thinking about, well, how would I do this thing that I do every day if I were to have a Mac sitting here?
Right.
I am serious. I would like an M1 and probably an M4, but I don't know how much. This is the thing about Apple. As much as
I'm wanting to see the prices.
Yeah, that's exactly my point. So this is the
2 minute
thing
warning.
that
2 minutes.
This is the thing. I know probably should save for after, but I'm going to say this much. Right when Apple switched over to the Intel instruction set. With the core Duos, they came out with a line of very inexpensive MacBooks. That's where they started delineating MacBook Pro, and it was affordable. And it was like $1,000. Like it was comparable to a similar spec PC.
Mm-hmm.
Now, not so much. In many cases, just maybe $300-400. But it's really, you can't do a 1-for-1 because the architectures are so different now. But it's a big wad of cash that I typically will hold on to a Mac for at least 6 to 7 years before I swap it for something newer.
1 minute.
Yeah, my Dell XPS 15 is starting to get long in the tooth. It works just fine. It does everything that I wanted to do for me, but the problem is that I can no longer extend the warranty on it. I'd have to go to like some third-party aftermarket warranty, which I don't really want to do.
The worst.
So,
what's the problem with it?
Oh, there's no problem with the PC. It's just that I always want to have something that is under
30
warranty
seconds
for work.
Yeah.
So,
I got you.
So it's like, well, do I get another? Do I replace this piece? Do I replace this, or do I get just something else? Because also the other thing too is if I got a Mac Mini, that would also probably require me to get another monitor, and I need all the radiation beaming into my eyeballs possible. I'm at 4 monitors
I'm
right
using
now.
an old Asus monitor with my Mac Mini right now. Good day, Internet.
Good day, Internet.
Good day and hello, Internet.
Yeah.
No? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a day.
We're on the internet.
Yeah.
It's happening.
It's a Tuesday.
It's a Tuesday, isn't it? October 8th. Wow. This is me as an old person just being like, it's almost Christmas. How did that happen? I woke up and it's almost Christmas.
But you haven't had you still haven't had Thanksgiving or candy for Halloween.
No. Right, exactly.
I fully expect to see holiday decorations for Christmas by October 15th because I've noticed for a couple of years it has happened before Halloween.
Oh, Rob.
Yeah, I fully expect it.
You should see my
Costco.
my neighborhood right now. It's like crazy spiders and the skellies and
that's not even from Halloween decorations. That's just the neighborhood.
Right, just the neighborhood. Imagine what happens when it is actually Halloween. No, it's listen, people like to decorate and we like to do tech news. So let's get into it. What do you say?
Let's do
it.
Though.
All right, I will count myself in. In 3, 2. Daily Tech News Show is made possible by you, your listeners, and ours as well. Thanks to all of you, including John Atwood, Pat, Mike Cortez, and we've got 2 new patrons, Tommy and Michael.
Tommy,
welcome. On this episode of DTNS, who got the latest prize in physics? That answer may surprise you. Plus AI chatbots in politics. What could go wrong? And Adobe wants to make sure you don't get caught in a deepfake. This is the Daily Tech News for Tuesday, October 8th, 2024. From Studio Animal House, I'm Sarah Lane.
From Columbus, Ohio, I'm Robb Dunwood.
And I'm the show's producer, Roger Chang.
Well, we're happy to have you all with us. We've got a lot of stuff to get through. So let's start, as we always do, with the quick hits. 14 state attorneys general, led by officials in New York and California, have filed lawsuits against TikTok, accusing it of harming children's mental health. The coalition of 14 law enforcement officers alleges that TikTok violated state laws by falsely claiming that its service is safe for young people. The lawsuits were filed individually and focused partly on what the plaintiffs call addictive features, including 24/7 notifications and video audio play. The filings also center on dangerous TikTok challenges and the collection of data about users under 13 without parental consent.
After 14 years, Red Dead Redemption is finally coming to the PC, giving gamers across the original game access to the original game after its 2010 release on PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. It came to the Nintendo Switch and PlayStation 4 in 2023, but without the major remaster many fans had hoped for. The PC port will let players who experience Red Dead Redemption 2 on the PC complete the full story.
Publishing conglomerate Hearst has partnered with OpenAI to integrate content from its big magazines like Cosmopolitan and Esquire into OpenAI's products, including ChatGPT. The deal let OpenAI's 200 million users access Hearst's lifestyle and news content over 20 magazine brands and 40 newspapers.
A judge in the Epic v. Google antitrust case has ruled that Google must give rival third-party app stores access to the full catalog of Google Play apps and distribute third-party stores as Epic requested. Epic successfully argued that Google had created such a substantial array of deals with developers, carriers, and device makers that it was nearly impossible for rival stores to spring up. Judge James Donato ordered the ruling to go into effect from November 1st, 2024 through November 1st, 2027. And just by the way, Google is appealing this.
Uber announced it's integrating ChatGPT into its driver app to assist with questions about electric vehicles as its EV ride-hailing business expands. So, at its Go Get conference, the company announced that Uber Green will go fully electric in 40 U.S. cities and several international locations, including in France, Australia, and New Zealand. These changes reflect Uber's growing focus on electric vehicles for both drivers and couriers alike. All right, Rob, let's talk about getting awards. So the Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences has awarded the 2024 Nobel Prize in Physics to researchers Geoff Hinton and John Hopfield for their pioneering work on artificial neural networks dating back to the late 1970s and early 1980s. So the recognition comes at a time where AI is clearly a driver of the, industrial revolution. Some people call it the fourth industrial revolution. Hinton and Hopfield were honored specifically for their, quote, foundational discoveries and inventions, end quote, that have enabled the development of machine learning through artificial neural networks. All right, so here's my question. Is this physics? And I guess it is. I mean, this is sort of the new normal, right? Like, is an LLM physics?
In a sense, isn't everything kind of physics? Everything breaks down to stuff moving at some point or other. So I think what makes this truly physics is the fact that the way these gentlemen were thinking about these neural networks back in the day was very similar to the way that the actual brain works and the way that brain stores memory. And they've actually, choose from that to develop what they've developed. So I think that's why it gets it into the physics realm. This particular award reminded me that I don't think I knew that the Nobel Award was not like the Academy Awards until I was probably in college or grad school, that it's not based off of what happened last year. It's based off of what happened in years previous that just is important to the world today. So it's pretty interesting. It's something that these gentlemen who are they're still chugging along. They're still doing what they do, in this realm today, some 40 plus years later, that they're still doing it, but they're being recognized for work that they did literally back in the 70s and 80s when we were all very, very young.
One of the, and I know the ongoing conversation is sort of like, AI is, good, but it isn't. And, when is it good and when is it not good? And, I made a joke with some friends this morning of I was like, thanks, Hinton and Hopfield, because now we have just really weird deep fakes all the time, on the internet. But yes, this technology allows for that kind of thing to happen more often, and we all have to be more vigilant about it. But really, the fact that we are in a world where 5 years ago, we did not talk about any of this stuff. I mean, maybe there were whisperings about it in a research community, but now everybody on Earth is either using these tools for good or not for good. And, this is the new normal. And, for that reason, it's a pretty scientific discovery.
It is. It's really amazing if you think about just ChatGPT and LLMs and that type of artificial intelligence. It's really new to the world. We weren't talking about this at the level that we're talking about it now 2 years ago. I mean, we're still not at the 2-year mark when ChatGPT 3.0 came out and everybody's like, oh, wow, this is different. Let me go learn how to be a prompt engineer. That's not even 2 years ago. So it is even more impressive the fact that these gentlemen were thinking about this kind of stuff not 2 years ago. They were thinking about it 42 years ago. I mean, they were thinking about this stuff in the late 70s. So it is, I know some people are saying, well, is it really physics? And it's like, well, yeah, everything kind of is. But I do really believe that because of the way, and it doesn't really matter what I believe, the Swedish Academy, the Royal Academy, the Royal Swedish Academy believes this, that the way that they were thinking about how this actually maps the actual mind is where the physics play comes in. But, it's one of those things to where I think that you have an absolute responsibility to think about how things are going to affect the world, not so much as maybe weapon systems, that we build, But yeah, you kind of now, especially anything that's AI, you kind of have to think about, if I build this, how is it going to affect tomorrow?
Right.
Because people are going to be nefarious in almost anything that comes out as quickly as the good stuff that comes from it.
100%. Yeah. Yes. We're the whole sort of like modern physics has definitely taken a slight turn as of late.
So let's use as a segue and to see how some just crazy ways that artificial intelligence could be used. A Virginia congressional candidate, Bentley Hensel, wants to debate the incumbent seat holder, Don Beyer, so badly that he's created an AI chatbot to stand in for Beyer in case he's a no-show for an October 17th debate Beyer never agreed to. This will put an entirely different spin on empty chair debating. Instead of the performative nature of debating someone who's not there, the chatbot, in this case, DonBot, which is built on APIs from OpenAI and trained on Don Beyer's official websites, press releases, and data from the Federal Election Commission, could actually answer questions based on data from which it was trained. So, Sarah, I think that this has to be looked at as a publicity stunt. Bentley Hensel himself acknowledges that the use of AI is in part a last-ditch effort to bring some attention to an otherwise predictable campaign. Don Beyer won the seat with an overwhelming majority in 2022, and in 2024, his campaign contributions outpaced Hensel's by nearly 90-1, where he has 1.5 million being raised just under 17,000, for Hensel. So my question is this what politics has come to? Or, we've got to debate AI to determine whether or not we are a good candidate for the people. It's kind of crazy to me.
Okay, so Don Beyer running away with this, probably
running away, like it's over. I think it was 77%. Of the vote is what he got last time. So he's clearly the front runner here.
Right. So we've got Bentley Hensel, who's like, you know what? I want to debate you. And Beyer is sort of like, not worth my time. But this is sort of interesting. So, a non-incumbent politician trying to, get momentum, and yes, publicity stunt for sure. But is there a way? Is there a world where you do debate what that other politician with all the things that can be scraped out from the world? All the information, could potentially help you because you're not necessarily lying. It's performative, right? But it's not necessarily bad information.
So there's two ways to think about this if you were in a political race. One, you could use this trained chatbot of your opponent as a sparring partner for an actual debate. So yeah. I could have, say Don Beyer actually did agree to an actual one-on-one, televised debate. Bentley could use this and say, like, you know what? I'm going to train up on all the potential questions that I might be asked, and then I can have, a run through. So I'll be super prepared. The other aspect to look at this is from the opponent's side, which is to say, look, they are training their DonBot on these particulars of my previous candidacy, but also my previous positions. I will need to have maybe a broader set or maybe a focus on different other areas that might not have been trained on, so I could give a slightly different performance for an audience that's still Don, but not Don trained, not the Don bot, which I think, ultimately, this is just a tool that further muddies the waters for everyone. It's just it adds noise to the whole thing, and I think it could be a good training tool. I don't know how effective it would be in changing people's voters' minds.
when it comes into like a debate, like so and so didn't come. Well, no, I'll just debate your AI. It's like, okay.
I mean, debates have a questionable influence on voter intent, right? Because they've done studies before and after, and the one thing that will or at least sort of point the way direction in which a voter will vote after debate is how they thought about that candidate before the debate. In other words, the debate didn't really switch anything, even people who were on the fence. So in that aspect, I don't think it would be that effective. What I think it will be is, either deep fakes, which I think as people become more aware of it, tend to be a little more immune to, but really just kind of as a training. Like, let's give all the scenarios to the Don bot and then find all the ways our campaign can outflank them because they haven't done A, B, or C.
Using it for sparring during debate prep, that absolutely could be something I could see happening. It's not going to be exact because one of the things that a human is always going to be able to do is express nuance or right there on the fly change an opinion and make it sound like it's an opinion they've always held. That's one of the things that politicians are fairly adept at doing. They will tell you something today that's completely contrary to what they said a day ago, but make you think that what they said a day ago is exactly what they just told you just now.
Yeah.
And the AI
and maybe because
isn't going
they
to do
said
that
is because they're responding to somebody attacking them.
Right. And they're going to say, well, you have to look at the nuance. What were the things that were said before this? The other part is that we don't believe politicians when they are standing there talking to us with the words coming out of their mouth. So are we going to believe an approximation of what an AI thinks a politician would say? No, we're going to even be more skeptical. So, like I said, Hansel even said himself that this is more or less a publicity blunt. Or publicity stunt, but it is interesting that we're in a space now where you can go look at everything that has been recorded, everything that has been written, everything that's been put on video, and push that into a computer, and then ask it questions, and it tell you as though you were the person that was being recorded, that was that had their words taken in whatever way they were taking and put into a computer and crunched out. That is an impressive thing. And it's also the three attorneys in Virginia said that this would stand up to a legal test. There's really nothing that buyer would be able to do unless they were actively trying to mislead people or actively lying and saying that he said things that he didn't say.
This is the thing. As Don Buyer, I could easily say, putting words in my mouth. I didn't agree to that. That chatbot was trained on my history. But you know what? You could have a candidate go through all of my previous campaigning and do the same thing and still come up with hallucinations. So in other words, I don't know. Again, I don't think there's an effectiveness to this. What I will say, and I said this in our pre-show meeting, is that I think politics is a good stress test for any kind of AI modeling or any kind of AI legislation, because it does try to find all the legal, or not maybe legal, but all the tricks you can do in order to kind of coax certain behaviors out of these technologies that you want.
So if you have feedback about anything that gets brought up on the show, get in touch with DTNS audience on the socials at DTNS Show on X or Twitter, on Mastodon at mstdn.social, at Daily Tech News Show on TikTok, and at DTNS Picks on Instagram and Threads.
Adobe is proposing a new way to protect digital artists from AI-driven deepfakes and content theft. The Content Authenticity web app, launching in Q1 of 2025, will offer creators an opportunity to apply content credentials to their work, certifying it as their own. If I made that that piece of art, that is my piece of art. Adobe system uses digital fingerprinting, invisible watermarking, and cryptographically signed metadata to more securely protect an artwork, including images, video, and even audio files. Content authenticity adoption is voluntary, but Adobe has founded 2 industry groups to bolster trust and transparency, to which more than 90% of the camera industry belongs. Okay, so this is Adobe. Adobe is, what Adobe tries to do in an effort to make people who use Adobe products be like the most authentic people makes a lot of sense to me. But do we think that that this could be something that would be industry wide?
Possibly. Because here's what Adobe is trying to do. Adobe is trying to make content authenticity. They're trying to make that be the new alt tag to where everybody just kind of uses it. So what they want is that if you've created a piece of digital artwork, you can sign it with this content authenticity web app, or do it. I would imagine that eventually you'll be able to do it directly within Adobe apps. And once you sign it, this is how we're going to track to make sure that anyone who knows who looks at it is going to be able to eventually figure out who was the original creator. And that's what Adobe is trying to do. Now, as you said, Sarah, it is voluntary, but the fact that most of the camera manufacturers are using it, and the fact that you're going to have other companies and platforms like Microsoft and OpenAI are going to be using it. And then you've got the social media platforms like TikTok, LinkedIn, Google, Instagram, Facebook. They've all said that they're going to use it. And the fact that there's 33 million paying subscribers of Adobe products, I would imagine that this has a fair chance of catching on, simply because people who are creating, digital art, they want to make sure that they get credit for the things that they create. And this is a way that legitimately looks like it's going to be able to allow them to track and tell who created something originally.
And I think it's important, on the reverse of that, Rob, it's not just like, hey, I don't want you to steal my work and then present it as your own. It's also making sure that people don't do something in, say, a very Rob Dunwood style, whether it's a picture or a photograph or whatever, and then altering it to make it seem maybe a little more unseen.
Like Rob did something that he didn't do.
Yeah, and then presenting as like, look, Rob Dunwood, all he trades in is, look at those lies,
yeah.
and under
He's
the
got
words,
crazy shoes. Rob's like, I don't have those shoes.
Like presenting you in a bad light, and you want to say like, all my work is always, in the same way that people used to fake emails, like it came from your mother or your father. In this way,
well, they still do that.
Yeah. Well, but we've gotten wise to it, right? We understand. We have clues that let us know. And the idea behind this for Adobe is that artists will be able to kind of have a chain. That no matter what alterations, there is a kind of a chain between, my stuff and whatever someone else does that alters it. And this is just as important for Adobe. I mean, one of Adobe's Creative Cloud products is an AI generative tool, not only in Photoshop and Premiere, but also Firefly with standalone. And so the idea behind this is if Adobe can help establish the foundations of how all this authenticity, the watermarking works, they actually have a lot of control going down the line, because then all the other companies that try to build similar products will have to kind of adhere to that standard, because that's what everyone else is using. And if you don't, then people aren't going to use your products because you don't support that particular watermarking.
I hope that's the case. I wonder if it is, though. Back in the day, it was sort of like, ooh, if you use Photoshop, like you're like a real photographer, you're a real content creator, that kind of thing. We are not in that world anymore. I mean, certainly if you're a Photoshop whiz, don't come for me because you're really, really good at what you do. But there are so many other tools that I think it obfuscates like what is real, what is not real, who is really, really trying to do good things. And that's the conversation that we're having right now.
The advantage that Adobe has is that so many people use their tools that they're, PSD files are kind of the default now. It's like you're using their file extension. So right here, so like right now, a tool that competes with Adobe Premiere is TikTok's CapCut. Well, TikTok is already saying we're going to support this. No, they haven't signed on and saying that we're going to build this into our product. But the fact that if they're going to be supportive of it, you're probably going to be able to use CapCut and sign it so that it has content authenticity. So that if, so you can say this is a video that I created and it's going to have all of those things that mark it digitally so that people know that it's yours. So I just think, once again, this is, what Adobe is trying to do here is they're trying to make content authenticity be the alt tag. Not everybody uses them, but enough people do, and there's so much benefit to using them that you actually doing yourself benefit if you're putting alt tags on your images so that people know where they're from, that people who maybe or visually impaired can actually see, understand what your image is if they can't see it. Those kind of things are going to be beneficial to, people. And I think that here, just knowing who actually created something or being able to say, hey, that's my image that somebody actually tried to rip off from me, it's such a beneficial thing. That I don't know that it's going to catch on, but it has the opportunity to. I think that Adobe rather is big enough that this could actually work for them.
I feel like if anybody does this right, it's going to be Adobe, and who knows? Maybe I'm wrong, but we do have to have some sort of fingerprint, some sort of thing, to let folks know, all right, yeah, this is legitimate. Here's who made it. Yeah. Here's why it's legitimate.
And again, don't forget, the industry standards are an important thing for a very important reason. They're very long lasting, right? We still use docs. We still use a bunch of other file formats because they're legacy formats that billions of other people have used, and that's the only way to transmit information. And so, again, Adobe, if they can get enough people on board, it does give them a lot of weight in an industry that is now becoming very competitive. Also, I think it goes some way to alleviate the fear as Adobe integrates more generative AI tools into its offerings that are starting to say, well, I'm never touching Adobe again because they're using generative AI.
Yeah,
that's a real good point.
All right, well, let's move on to our mailbag. Devin wrote in regarding yesterday's conversation that Tom had with Nika Monford about direct-to-cell satellite connections from North Carolina, which has obviously been hit by a very terrible storm recently. Devin says, I live in Asheville, North Carolina, the epicenter of the devastation from Hurricane Helene. I'm safe, but I don't have power. I'm off one of the main roads. The majority of residents don't have water and likely won't have for weeks, if not months. Devin says, I always thought the cell phone was my backup, but now I realize it's less of a redundancy than I thought. Many have actually resorted to AM/FM radio as their primary source of information, even today. Many in tech know the rule of threes for backing up files. I will now subscribe to the rule of three for internet connectivity. The first is your primary provider at home. The second is cellular. The third is some form of satellite, like Starlink, with a generator and at least 5 gallons of gas to power it. Devin says, I would strongly encourage each of your listeners to have a plan for staying connected if the unexpected happens. Being prepared can make a significant difference in a crisis situation, potentially saving lives.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting, and I think we're going to talk a little bit more about it in GDI, after the show. But you hate to say that you now have to have a Starlink and a generator, but you might now need to have a Starlink and a generator if you want to stay in contact with all these weather events that we seem to be having. And
with so much of us invested, with so much of our lives integrated with technology, it's no longer a nice to have. It's a crucial.
It's a
part
need to
of
have.
Your plan.
Yeah, no, it's 100%.
So, folks, we also have a submission from Chris Christensen, the amateur traveler. He sent us his thoughts on the DNA theft from yesterday's DTNS conversation about the impact from 23andMe's data breach last year.
This is Chris Christensen from Amateur Traveler with another tech and sci-fi moment. Say what? Wanted to respond to Tom. You were talking about what's the worst that could happen if someone steals your genetic material. Well, sci-fi has taught us, of course, cloning, but that brings us to quick cloning, where you can download your consciousness into a clone for a temporary period of time. So, for instance, you could travel someplace without the jet lag or even do space travel instantaneously, having your consciousness beamed and then downloaded into a clone. So it could be that the worst thing that could happen is some really, really bad FOMO, where your clone got to go to the moon base and all you got was this lousy t-shirt. This is Chris Christensen from Amateur Traveler.
Wow, Chris. Yeah, I know. I mean, gosh, imagine the clone just like doing all the cool stuff, going to the moon.
The cooler thing is that Mr. Christensen says that with an absolutely straight voice.
He really does. He really does. He's just like,
you don't know that he's joking right there.
Yeah. Well, listen, folks, as we wrap up the show, just a reminder that Apple Vision Show is a show hosted by myself and Eileen Rivera, and it is a lot of fun. We are wondering if we're getting M4 Mac Minis. Could be any day now. We're hoping so. Get subscribed now to go along with the ride with us at applevisionshow.com. Also, patrons, stick around for our extended show here, Good Day Internet. We're going to talk and continue our conversation about being prepared for tech when you're in a natural disaster. It can be a little tricky depending on the types of conditions you'll be facing, but we're going to talk about it.
You can also catch the show live Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern, 2000 UTC. Find out more at dailytechnewsshow.com/live. We'll be back tomorrow with Scott Johnson.
The DTNS family of podcasts, helping each other understand.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Well, I understood plenty, and it's all thanks to you.
So everyone, if you haven't already, please go on and vote for titles over at DTNS.showbot.tv. We actually have 15 votes right now, but 28 titles. So get in there. Let us know what you think we should title the show.
Indeed. Yeah. I like a couple of these already. But yeah. So Rob, just to kind of piggyback off our last conversation, the whole rule of threes for internet connectivity. How well do you subscribe to that, or do you have another option?
Having a generator, if you are in a place that is prone to weather events, is a good thing. Saying that you need a generator and a Starlink, I don't want to say that's a stretch, because it really doesn't look like it's a stretch right now. That Devin is in the situation to where if he had a Starlink, he would actually be able to, connect a little bit more easily than he has been struggling with over the last week or so. But I definitely think those first two things you absolutely have to have, and just that generator with a 5 gallon tub of gas, a tank of gas is probably not a bad idea. Like I'm hard pressed to say you need to get Starlink as well. But if you are in the sticks, if you're in a place that can absolutely be cut off, you don't have good cell service out there, you might need to think about something like a Starlink.
And
yeah, sorry, go ahead, Roger.
Oh, no, I was going to mention you don't need to be in the sticks to lose connection. Nika was saying she lives in a suburb of Atlanta. She lost cell phone connection. It was down along with her electricity. So you could easily find yourself, even if you think you live in a very urbanized, very built up with good infrastructure location, all it takes is one oversized storm to bring down a lot of the stuff we take for granted.
The reason I made the comment about being out is that I would expect that in a major metropolitan area like where Nika is, that they're going to be getting that cellular connectivity back up pretty quick and in a hurry. If not, driving in those big trucks where they've got the cellular on a truck, those things are going to get to where she is a lot more quickly than someone who is kind of out in the country. And we've got to get everyone in the city back up first, and then we're going to work on those folks out there. So I think the further you are from a big, city center probably makes you say, you might want to have some center, some satellite access as well.
Yeah. When I was not where I am now, I mean, thankfully, we've had like a couple power outages, but like nothing crazy. But when I was up in Forestville, California, in the treehouse, that was, everything was, we were definitely in the sticks. And the power would go out, and there was a generator, but if the generator didn't go on, and even sometimes when it did, the cell towers that were near us that we were pinging, they were down. Mm-hmm. So you didn't have any, I mean, it wasn't just sort of like, ooh, 1 bar. It was like, no, it's dead. It's dead. And I would have to drive, 10 miles to the east to just call somebody on the phone, and even like PG&E, which was our
Utility company.
a utility company at the time, PG&E, whatever. That's a long story, but just to be able to call them and be like, hey, we've got a problem at my house, kind of thing. And that was tough. It was tough. People would say, but you have a generator. Wouldn't that keep your Wi-Fi up? It kept the Wi-Fi up, but it didn't keep the cell service up. And, those two need to work in tandem in a perfect world.
There's a lot of technologies, because of how reliable and how effectively they integrate, we often sort of take them for granted. Like, to run a cell network, you need to have the cell towers running, but they also need to be connected to the rest of it, because if they don't, there's no connection. Then you might connect to the tower, but as you mentioned, Sarah, there's no connectivity. I think one of the important things is understanding kind of how you triage your technology. There's things that are nice to have, and then there are things that you absolutely need to have. But there's also behaviors, right? One of the things they often stress during disaster is don't try to avoid overloading the phone networks with telephone calls. If you know someone on a cell phone, text them, or you can text them back, because that takes up a lot less bandwidth that is in scarce supply for a lot of other people to do the same thing. But also have you have things the way that you need it. You have a source of power. You have at least one reliable way of connection. Whether that's just a AM FM radio tuned to the disaster frequency, so you can get regular updates from whatever disaster agency is handling your area, but also ways to let your family members that you're okay. So you're not relying only on Facebook to say I'm okay, right? You have I got the one text that went to Aunt Edna, and Aunt Edna let everyone else know that I'm okay, because my connection's very intermittent, but we're okay. You want to have those systems in place, because when you're trying to figure out during the situation, you're going to run into a lot of obstacles.
Yeah, we might need to start normalizing the emergency weather radios again. I'm looking at some of these things. They're not terribly expensive. Even the ones that have like shortwave ham radios built into them, so that you can actually use a walkie-talkie, for a lack of a better word, to actually connect to people when all other infrastructure goes down. But you definitely want to be able to hear on the radio and get weather updates. These things you generally have flashlights built into them. Some of them actually have a built-in generator, so you can turn a hand crank to power them. And then of course, if you go with the higher end ones, where you get the ones with the built-in ham radio, you've got a CB that you can actually use to talk to emergency responders and get the word out. Hey, I'm okay. Here's where I am. You need to get here immediately, or we've got time. We've got water. We're good. That actually would help responders if there is no communication.
There was I think it was on Threads. It might have been on X this morning, where a meteorologist was like, you know what, everybody, just, we're trying our best. Please stop. Please stop making this harder than it has to be. We have really good tools to do the things that we need to do to let you know what is going on. Let's, no AI, fake videos of a dog carrying a child type thing. Like, no, let the people who are trying to help you out do the help. And yeah, weather radios, great way to do that.
And this is the other thing. Even if you're not in the disaster zone, but you're following it, be very, very judicious on the information you share. Because one of the problems that a lot of rescuers and a lot of agencies are running into is there's just a lot of misinformation and disinformation that's being spread over social media,
Right.
that is making their work unnecessarily more difficult. So just be careful. Like, you don't want to give people false information on where to go for help, right? You want to make sure you do your due diligence and ensure that the information you're passing along is, one, legitimate, two, accurate. You don't want to give information from 5 years ago. You want to give the most recent information, because the goal is to help people and not just add to the chaos that's already there.
Sure.
Yeah, I actually heard someone similar to what you were saying, was a weatherman saying this. Sarah, is that if you don't want to believe MSNBC because you don't like that, fine. If you don't want to believe CNN because you don't like them, fine. If you don't want to believe Fox News, they were basically saying if you don't want to go to the cable news outlets because you can't trust them, fine. But your local networks, your local television stations, by law, they have to be able to give you this information that you can trust. You can pretty much guarantee that your local television station is not feeding you misinformation when it's an emergency alert and they're telling you, here is where you need to go. Here's where you need to shelter down and shelter to. So I thought that was actually a good point as well that I heard by, I think it also was a weatherman, a weather person that was saying that recently about just all the misinformation is going out. If you don't want to believe the internet channels, fine, but go to your local channels and you can expect that you're getting information from them because the government dictates that they must give you the appropriate information. If you're not trusting the government in times right now,
of this is
kind
like
of SOL.
Yeah, some of this is like totally 100% Rob. Some of this is, the weather radios are, just sort of like, here's where high tide is today, kind of thing. It's like, if you're not near the ocean, maybe you don't care about that much. But, this is just sort of information that is just freely available to anybody at all times.
And you're right. On regular days, here's where high tide is. But when there's an emergency, they are giving you pertinent information that can ultimately save your life. So
yes, exactly, because they're there anyway. It's almost like, I don't know. It's almost like
it's a service.
I would equate it to, it's a service that I would equate to, I don't know, like, flight safety. Like people work on this all day, every day to give us the information. So that sometimes those, as antiquated as sometimes these systems seem, I like them.
I think it's very interesting you bring that up, Sarah, like antiquated system. One of the things you want to have in emergency is maybe a backup, maybe an older phone, maybe not too old so it still works with modern networks, but like a flip phone, something that doesn't use as much juice and you could reliably use it for up to 4 days without having to recharge it. Because one of the things, I found out during a recent wildfire was some people I knew just had, they had ability to charge their phones and people are coming towards them to charge, whatever they had. But like having power efficient devices, right? If you're in an emergency, it's great that you have the latest Pixel 9 or iPhone 16, but you also want to have something in there that's reliable enough that you can run for a few days without having to find out where you can plug it in after 12 hours.
Yeah, that or everyone should probably just have in their, like next to their emergency go kit or whatever you're calling that, just get like an anchor battery, just a battery, something that's 20,000 milliamps so you can charge, a phone up 2-3 times with it for when that cell phone runs down. Because those things, like I said, to have an extra phone just there in case of emergency, if you're in a spot to where those things happen regularly, that might be the good thing. But you probably can protect yourself also by just having a nice battery that you can get for $20-$30 and just keep it with you wherever you're going.
And Clinton Woodward brings up a good point. It's like you can still keep old phones around as backups because phones without plans can still call 911.
That is true.
That is a good reminder. I've got an old iPhone in the house that, it's not that old, but it's not the phone that I'm using day to day. And that's a good one.
And
I have a tub of old Blackberries. I wonder if they can still.
How old are they?
Some of them pretty old. Some of them pretty old, but like I've got like some ones that were relatively recent when the company was still called Research in Motion. So like the BlackBerry 9930 is probably the newest one that I have.
It's like 7 years old or 6 years old on that one.
It's probably more than 7 at this point. That thing probably came out in like 2015, 2016. I can't
Was
remember.
it that recently? 2015.
Let's find out.
Gosh. Yeah, let's find out.
I see he's doing the Tom thing.
I still, my BlackBerry Pearl. I love that thing.
I love my Pearl.
I would never get rid of it. It doesn't do anything for me anymore, but I'm not throwing that phone out.
I gave it to my sister and she broke it, so it stopped.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't see any dates on this thing, but yeah, this is the BlackBerry Bold 9930, and it is still brand new in the box.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You are going to be.
So no, here we go. 2011.
Wow.
Oh, this is 13 years old.
That makes more sense. Yeah.
It's in high school almost.
So this was like the last breath of BlackBerry. 2011.
Yeah, this is when BlackBerry was still a good device.
This is the conversation that people were still having at the time, where they're like, "No, I want a physical keyboard."
No, that's me. I was a BlackBerry user until I finally moved over to, because they discontinued that series of phones, but also because it took forever to pull up a web page. But there's something I really enjoy about a BlackBerry form factor, just the keyboards. Yeah. Also, I like the little square that you just thumb through like a mouse. Like touchscreens are great, but I like the one-handed operation.
Yeah, and this, like I said, this one was a nice one. It actually was a touchscreen as well.
There's and they were pretty
and you
solid.
never opened it.
Well, to be completely honest, I did open it to take the battery out of it, just so that the battery wouldn't explode and destroy it. But I do have I have the exact same device, but this is the Verizon model. I have an AT&T model that is still in the box with the original wrapping on it. So hopefully the battery won't explode in that thing. But I did want to at least have a couple of them that I took the batteries out, just so that we wouldn't have any issues with them.
Right? Yeah, it's like eBay. This is not going to work well if my battery has exploded and now the box looks very different.
I think I probably have 10. Now it's more than 10. I probably have 12 to 15 Blackberries that are brand new in the box, just like that.
What is happening? Are you thinking about just, I don't know, it's a collection thing, or?
Well, for those who don't know, I used to run a pretty big BlackBerry website, BlackBerry enthusiast website back in the day, called remarkable.com. So I was sent many of these things to review. But I always like to go out and buy my own device and review it, so I wouldn't be beholden to any company that sent me something for free. So the ones that I got sent for free, I just left them in the box. And like I said, I got a crate of dozens of Blackberries back in the back room right behind me. And who knows, man, if
I would love to know
Research
what the second
ever
market
decides
for
we're coming back,
is.
Rob, I was upset that they didn't even call me to help them make the movie, because I could have looked at some stuff.
You should start up what'd you call your website? Remarkable?
Yeah, it was RIM. It was a play on Research in Motion. So instead of Remarkable, it's Remarkable.
Then you can have the Remarkable Museum,
right,
and then it's just all these BlackBerry products from all over time and space.
Time and space, for sure.
Yeah,
space being, it might be something from overseas or.
No, but seriously, like I want to know if you're like, no, I'm keeping them, that's fine. But if you were like, it's an eBay situation, I want to know. I want to know what these things are going for.
So you know how foldables have sort of breathed new life into flip phones? We also have separate flip. I am waiting for the renaissance back in the physical keys on phones, where people are like, hey, I'm going to do this instead of using a touchscreen chatbot.
Do you think we're doing that? Because now we can just Bluetooth with a physical keyboard with all sorts of phones. I know it's not the same, but I don't know. It's a good question.
So here's the thing: Blackberries, these devices were built like tanks. I mean, you didn't need a case for them. You could just throw them off a balcony, and they were virtually indestructible. Not all of them. Like this Bold, I wouldn't trust it to the same extent that I would some of the older, really thick plastic Blackberries. But they were used in like India and in like Pakistan and in like in countries like that for quite a while, because it was, these devices were expensive, and because these were built so well, they just lasted forever. So you would see people who would just refurbish them and fix them up and go on and so forth. And this one just stopped working here in, Verizon. I want to say it was either early this year or late last year that they actually just switched off of where this would no longer work on Verizon's network. And this was, like I said, this phone came out in 2011. So they last for, for a while. I think I might still have one or two devices that were kind of like after, BlackBerry changed its name from Research in Motion to BlackBerry, and they were having other companies build them that they actually still work on, not CDMA networks, but like the old 3G networks. I guess that was CDMA, but
CDMA, GSM.
So we're getting to the point now to where like the carriers just don't support the technology in them outside of emergency networks.
Yeah.
I would fully expect us to still be able to make a 911 call. I don't know that I can make a phone call on it though.
Yeah. I mean, if you're in a 911 situation, you want the right device to do that. I mean, my watch will call 911 if I trip. My watch, which I'm not actually wearing right now, but BlackBerry family, very strong. I mean, to this day, lots of folks are just like, I mean,
the force was
do
strong.
anything to get.
I held
my
on
BlackBerry
as
back.
long as I could, but it just got to the point to where, Rim, what are you guys doing? It's like, do you not see what these Android devices and these these iPhones are doing?
Because you had such a like a good crew of folks who were like,
the advantages
yes, we want you.
The advantages that they had. I mean, you had like, they were big like in hip hop, like all the rappers were using Blackberries. Yeah. Blackberries being used in the names of songs and stuff like that. BBM and all that kind of stuff. It's
right.
It is.
Oh, BBM.
It is.
I miss
it is
BBM.
Truly amazing that a company that had all those advantages just let it all go away, and a lot of it was simply just stubbornness, just stubbornness to understand what was coming.
Okay. So let's talk about this. So, you get the iPhone, the first iPhone, and this is still at, BlackBerry still being like kind of top dog, right? People were sort of like, iPhone really cool, but like, there's no keyboard, it's exciting, but like, is it really something that we use day to day? And a lot of BlackBerry people were like, nope, not even close. And that went on for a few years.
Well,
so for those who remember and don't come for me, Apple fans, because this is what I'm saying is a very true statement. The original iPhone, the first iPhone, it was not the iPhone 16. It did not even it didn't come close to what BlackBerry was when the first one came out. No. And I think BlackBerry decided we're going to tap dance on the fact that the original iPhone is just not that good. But then you got into the iPhone 3 and the iPhone 3G, the iPhone 3GS. And it's like, oh, they're getting really, really good. And it's like, oh, now they have, the Apple Store, the App Store. It's like, that's different. And BlackBerry is just like, nope, we're going to still do what we're doing. We're not going to adjust to this at all. And by the time they made the decision to start adjusting to what Apple was doing with Android or what Google was doing with Android, now it's too late, because now you're trying to catch up to features that these other phones have had for a couple of years. And you're hanging on to the, there's the BlackBerry, a BlackBerry that had like a touch screen, but it still had a physical button where the whole screen was like a button. It's like, what are you doing? BlackBerry, they just never adjusted well to what Apple and what Google were doing to them back in the, in the early, in the aughts.
One of the things was back then, a lot of the infrastructure that we take for granted when it comes to mobile data, to mobile, formatted web pages for smartphones, AMP Google AMP and all that stuff didn't exist. It was the existence of iPhone 7 that kind of sort of forced the cell phone or the carrier industry to kind of upgrade their equipment, upgrade a lot of the services in order for people to take advantage of the iPhone. The original iPhone couldn't do all the things you would expect an iPhone to do, like even down to doing, web pages, because it was pulling a desktop version of a web page onto your phone.
Yeah.
Right. And I think
it was like the apps weren't really like that.
The apps
was
weren't
not
really there.
There wasn't.
No, they weren't there. Like,
Steve
there
Jobs
was no app store for the first 3 or 4 iPhones. It took a minute for them to come out.
No.
The idea behind
it was a pretty phone that had promise, but people were sort of like, what does it do?
The apps were just web apps initially, right? And that was the idea. And that's what Steve Jobs wanted.
Progressive web apps.
Yeah, progressive. Well, the idea was that instead of developers, working out and wonking out on the phone, they'll do the apps the proper way on the website. Those will be developed in a way that they will automatically just work on the iPhone. Of course, that whole thought process went out the window a few years later. But I think BlackBerry was in a position where they, A, got complacent, but B, did not see it because none of the other infrastructure was there in place. In the same way that people were kind of mocking Netflix when they were going for the streaming. People were saying, well, CDNs don't have the capacity. How are you going to get a DVD quality movie straight through the internet, through someone's house on a TV so they don't have to get a disc? But all that infrastructure caught up. And by the time that, it came around, it was kind of too late to sort of kind of influence the industry, which is what Apple did. And which is why the iPhone today is as successful, is because they weren't the first smartphone. They weren't even the second smartphone on the market, but they were enough of a footprint that they could say, we're going to just tell the providers, tell app developers, we're going to tell everyone to do it this way to work on the iPhone. And Apple was big enough at that point to do it. And, they've been yanking everyone's chain since then.
Like it's sad for BlackBerry because they had the size to be able to do that. They just didn't have the vision.
Yeah, it comes down to vision.
Yeah, they did not have the vision.
Was it Balisero or I'm trying to remember one of the head
Basile.
Basile. He said, "What's the point? What's the point of apps? There's just they go straight to a website. There's just a web link. Well, why is it a thing? Like, why wouldn't you just go straight to the website to do the same thing?" Could not see past what existed to what could exist.
Yeah, it was. That's when they had the co-CEOs. It was Jim Basile and Mike Lazaridis. And from what I understand, they had a lot of internal arguments where one was, "This is my baby. I don't want to change it," and the other one's like, "Dude, we have to change it, or we won't be a thing in 2 years."
Yeah. You cannot assume the way
the
things
whole
are.
Co-CEO thing in general, I'm always just sort of like, I don't know, maybe it works, but probably not.
One of the things I realized early on, working at Tech TV, but also at Revision 3, is that the people in charge of a startup that start up something often aren't the same people you want when you want the business to continue, right? To kind of be an existing, because the mindset's
Do you
different.
want them at any point?
Well, no, it's a different mindset. Right?
Yeah.
A startup mindset's not the same thing as we have an existing business, I want to see it continue mindset. And so, there's some people that can do it, right? And Steve Jobs is a clear example of someone who started Apple and then kind of got pushed out, but then came back in to revitalize the company. But he had a vision, consistent vision, but one he was not rigid with, right? He originally had all these products, but he said, you know what? It's not working. We got to change tack. He had enough self-awareness to understand things that did work initially. Yeah, well, things that worked originally don't work anymore.
Yeah.
It is not uncommon. In fact, I don't know this to be a fact, but if I had to bet, I would say that more than half of the original founders of companies, if those companies get bought, not go public, but if they get bought by another company, they usually are no longer part of that company within 18 months. I would say probably it's more than half, because they've gone from where it was their baby and it was their thing and they had ultimate control, and now they're owned by someone else, and there's just always some kind of friction there to where they want to do something because it's well, this is my baby. I don't want this to change in this way. And the company that bought them is like, we bought you so that we can cut this so that we can actually sell more of these things. And maybe you no longer need to be here. So it is quite often that you will see founders of companies are no longer with the parent company if they get bought by a larger company.
And that's sort of a funny thing. I feel like a lot of people sort of go like, oh, well, you just, made your money and left. And sometimes that's the case, right? But often the case is that this person, or small team, startup team, who, ends up being absorbed into a larger company is just sort of like, now it's different. And this isn't our baby anymore. And, it's sort of easy to be like, wah, you made money. Like, what are you complaining about? But when you really care about something and you really build something that's supposed to be something else, and then, getting bought by another company or for whatever reason, now you're, the folks in charge are turning it in a different direction. I get that. I do.
Well, one group of people that we really care about are our patrons, Sarah.
Indeed. We didn't get any patron raises, and we know we will next week. We know we will. I say next week because I'm going to be on vacation after today for a few days. But thanks to everybody who are our patrons. If you want to let somebody else know how to become a patron and directly support our show, patreon.com/DTNS is where to send them.
All right, we're going to sign off for today. We're going to catch you tomorrow with Scott Johnson.
And Nerd.
Good day, Internet.
Good day, Internet.
All right, before we go to the title selection, I want to give a shout out to everyone on the Twitch chat that's been supporting us. We have PC Smilesy, who's resubscribed with Prime.
What is that voice?
What's wrong with my voice?
I like it. No, I like it. Everybody. Ooh. No, it's good.
That's good. That's good.
Keep it up. Yeah.
All right. PC Milesy, who resubscribed with Prime, who's been subscribed for 47 months. Thank you so much. Zoe Brings Bacon for cheering us on with bits, and PC Milesy again for cheering us on with 70 bits. Thank you, one and all. Also want to give a shout out to Gigantify and Emote, who used 30 bits with us yesterday. Thank you, one and all.
All right, so over at showbot.tv/DTNS2, we got exactly the same amount of titles and votes. Doesn't happen that often.
That doesn't happen often at all. Yeah.
That's a symmetrical thing. Yeah.
It's like when the planets align. Maybe I should go play lotto numbers.
Indeed.
Today.
Well, now we have more votes.
Well.
But at the time. So Raymond PH in our number one spot with Chatbot says, I have concepts of a plan. We get what you're doing, Raymond. We get it. Everything is physics from Larry in Atlanta. Zoe Brings Bacon with politicians and AI fakes. So similar. Fred 819 with TikTok suits don't stop.
Kesha reference. Also like the P squared, but does your AI politician lie convincingly?
right. Yeah. Like, how do you lie? Do you lie good? Do you lie bad? GPEG 84 with the Nobel Prize goes way back for physics. But what did we go with, Roger?
We went with Ambassador Domo's Adobe sets the mark for AI security. Oh,
and it did. It did.
Well, hopefully they will.
Well, they would like to. Over on good stuff. And thank you to everybody, especially you, Ambassador Domo, for our
title.
Submitting titles. And over on the GDI side, we got DTNS Weather Ready from Moose 2271. That's funny. Weather Radio Comeback, also from Moose. I'm okay from Zoe. GPEG84 with keep your phones close. Keep your old ones even closer.
Ooh.
That's a fun one. Might be a little too long, but I like
C-Spawn, C-Spawn had a good one. Robb, the Rim Whisperer.
Context is king in those situations. Rim downfall has happened before. Hello, Kodak. Ambassador Domo.
Let's see. C-Spawn also had whether or not with a W-E-A, be prepared.
Also,
clever.
Robb's Blackberry Farm.
Where's that one? Oh, I see it.
C-Spawn.
Robb Robb has a magic desk too. You do. You just reached around and grabbed your phone. Oh, satellite service is remarkable. Also from GPEG84. Moose 2271. Roger's hoping the keyboard will return. It will. You just wait. I'm confident in it. Might just be a fad with the younger generation, but it will come back. You mark my words. Loving that click and feeling today. All right. What do you know? I don't know. I'm leading to C-Spawn's whether or not be prepared.
That one's clever. I like it.
It's a good one.
All right. C-Spawn, you get it. Whether or not be prepared.
Do it.
All right. Again, we'll catch you tomorrow with Scott Johnson. And we're going to raid Loading Ready Run. Tell them we said hello.
Indeed. Do it. Do it. Good day, Internet.
Good day.
Good day, Internet.